All right. Well, good morning. Buenos dias, amigos y amigas. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Edwin Quintero. I'm going to be your moderator for today. We are celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month. It began on September 15th and it ends on October 15th. So it commemorates the independence anniversaries of Costa Rica, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, Nicaragua, Mexico, Chile, and Belize. And so, just how everything's bigger in Texas, it's deep rooted as well. Our Hispanic heritage is deep rooted in our culture, or in our history as well. And just like that, our employees bring their culture to work every day. So, what a better way to celebrate the culmination of Hispanic Heritage Month than to celebrate and honor all those amazing contributions from our Hispanic employees that work in Texas State Parks. So, we also want to have some conversations about Latinas and Latinos working with Texas State Parks, and we're going to look towards the future and how can we engage the next generation of stewards that will help us protect our wild things and wild places. So with that being said, I definitely want to welcome the panelists. Please go ahead and join us, and we'll jump right into it. So definitely buenos dias, amigos y amigas. Thank you for being able to join us today. I definitely want to open it up to a conversation of just basically, asking some general questions about you guys, and just getting to know a little bit about you and having everybody else know a little bit about who you are, what do you do, and how did you come up to the current position that you're currently in right now. And so, this is pretty much open to anybody. So, Juliette, would you like to share with us, who you are, where do you, what do you do, and your current role, and how did you come up to your position?
Hi, everyone. My name is Juliette Garza. I am currently the park interpreter at Caprock Canyon State Park. And how did I get to my current position? That has been a little bit of a journey. I'm sure all of us will kind of say the same thing. So I kind of started, I really didn't know anything about Texas State Parks until probably my sophomore year of college. So kind of late in life, but I started by visiting Bastrop State Park, and I kind of fell in love with it there too. So whenever I found out that TPWD offers internships, I applied immediately. So I started my internship my junior year of university at with Texas Outdoor Family in Austin. So I worked with them for about 2 or 3 months, and I really fell in love with that. And then from there, I jumped the next summer to Brazos Bend State Park out in Houston area. And then once I graduated university, I was trying to get it in with TPWD, applying for park interpreter, park operation trainees. And I ended up starting off with a CSR job at Lockhart State Park. So I was there for a couple of months. And then from there, I promoted to a park operations trainee at Paladero Canyon State Park in Canyon, Texas. And I was there for almost 2 years. And then I've currently been at Caprock Canyon State Park for probably less than 3 months. So I'm still getting my feet underneath me here in this new position.
First of all, I want to thank everyone for having me today. I'm really excited to be a part of this. Yeah, my name is Luis Alvarado. I'm a Cultural Resources Coordinator with State Parks, Region 3, Office in Bastrop. What I do is I help our state parks, our division, our agency to comply with the various state and federal laws, rules, and regulations that dictate how we manage our cultural resources. I've been around for about 22 years within the agency. I started as a member of the archaeology survey team way back when, and slowly worked my way up through the ranks. I had a really great supervisor, a group of supervisors that allowed me the opportunity to pursue my master's degree, and through the tuition assistance program, I was able to pay my way through school along with some scholarships from the foundation. And this position that I'm in, these are much coveted within our ranks, and I got lucky, and one of our coordinators retired, and I immediately jumped at the opportunity, and luckily I was given the opportunity to serve in this position, which I've been in for like 6 years now. So very happy to be a part of this larger team.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Luis. Thanks for sharing your journey to Texas State Parks. Raul, would you care to share with the rest of the panel and everybody else watching who you are?
So my name is Raul Garza, Jr. I'm currently the park superintendent at Resaca Palma State Park. My journey to where I'm at today, it's been 15 years in the making. I first started at the Valley Nature Center in Westaco. I started off as a park technician working in the native plant nursery. Was there for about 5 years. Moved on to U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, where I was their first urban park ranger and community liaison. Did that for about 6 years and started getting my education and got my associates in communications. Transferred over to A&M Commerce and got my bachelor's in organizational leadership. That helped me out to get my position with Estero Llano Grande State Park as their lead interpreter. But before then, I was a maintenance specialist. Then came over to Resaca Palma as their lead ranger when I first started off, and then transferred over to Estero as the lead interpreter, and had a few opportunities that helped me in my professional development and becoming a manager. Did a short stint at Powderhorn State Park, and then became the interim superintendent at Resaca when that position became available. And now I'm the park superintendent. So it's been a long journey. It's been 15 years in the making, as I mentioned, but it's great to be a part of Texas Parks and Wildlife. It's a great agency to work for. It's amazing.
That's awesome. Thanks, Raul. I think I do remember, and I don't know if you do remember this or not, but doing a little bit of work at one of the refuge down there, and I think I might have bumped into you.
Yeah,
and it's been a long time.
I've met quite a few people along the way and done a lot of networking with TPWD and Fish and Wildlife. So it's been a great journey for sure.
That's awesome. Lori, would you like to share with us, your journey, who you are, where are you currently at right now, and your current position?
Sure. Well, good morning, everybody, and I'd like to say thank you. My name is Laura Hernandez, but I go by Lori Alaniz. Haven't changed my last name, but I just wanted to say I started my journey off as a volunteer in my hometown, El Paso, Texas. I, after 15 years, decided to return back to school to get my associates in geology. And then I got my bachelor's of science in geology as well. One of my instructors, environmental science, Tom Gill, pushed me to do an internship to at least try for it, and I got it. So I'm sorry about my dogs. The internship to France, I got for 1 year, for 1 month, excuse me. And we went to Octon, France, and we got to study the red beds out there. They believe that they're similar to the ones in Norman, Oklahoma. And so that was an experience to see a different culture and lifestyle. And so that I learned a lot coming from there. From there, I started volunteering with Tech 2O. They are part of the El Paso Water Company, and they do the water conservation. So I got to do a lot of things with them. GeoVentures, one of my professors at El Paso Community College had this program to teach students about living the outdoors, hiking, and all of that. And so I got to be a part of that, and also working with my community. I volunteered at Waco Tanks for several years, which is where I got my interest in wanting to be a TPWD employee. From there, I got the internship to Goliad State Park. But due to COVID, my internship was cut short, but it was still an awesome opportunity. When I got back home to El Paso, I got offered the job at Dinosaur Valley State Park for a seasonal CSR. And from there, I moved up to a CSR, which I am now. And I believe today I'll have 3 years there. So.
Oh, nice. That's awesome. It's always really good to hear everybody's journey, and I keep hearing a common theme going around. And so, uh, Isidro, would you mind just telling the rest of the panelists and everybody else watching, who you are, what do you currently do for the park that you're currently, helping out at, and what is your position there?
My name's Isidro Montemayor Jr. I'm a volunteer at Estero Llano Grande State Park here in the Rio Grande Valley. I guess my role would be, yeah, sometimes I'll assist, other times I'll lead whenever they need the Rangers for something else. How I got to where I'm at here is a very long journey. I'll try to keep it a little short because that goes in with one of the other questions I'll answer. But
Sure.
I've been volunteering with a nonprofit down here in the valley for about 20 years, the South Texas Engineering, Math, and Science Club, STEMS. And we take K through 12 kids on teach them outdoor education here in the valley, go to the island, fish, go to Estero, hike. But we also take them to different state and national parks all over the US. So we've been all over Texas, Caprock, Palo Duro, Big Bend Ranch. And then we've taken kids to Grand Canyon, Alaska, Tennessee, just different national parks. That gave me the experience to actually work for the park system. Did an internship at Laguna Tascosa, worked at for the NPS. I'll go into that a little bit later. U.S. Forest Service. And then when I moved back to the valley, I was actually looking for a job. And in between, I decided I'd go out birding. And Estero turned out to be one of the best birding spots in the valley. That's just my opinion, though. And I was there regularly for every birding walk on weekends and Wednesdays. And then one day, one of the rangers just hands me because I was helping out, assisting with the guides. And then one day they just handed me, well, here's a volunteer ID, and then started leading some of the guided walks, to give the rangers a break when they're needed for other programs.
That's awesome. Yeah, you're quite right. I think a lot of the valleys are really great birding spots. And so I keep hearing that recurring theme from everybody, internship and volunteering. And so, Luis, I'm curious to hear your journey and your current role and how'd you get to the current position you're in right now?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Luis Canales. I started my career as a state park police officer, assistant superintendent at Falcon State Park. I was there for about approximately 4.5 years. From there, I transferred over to the Rio Grande Valley, where I was able to continue serving the great people of the valley, like everyone else knows, under 3 different parks. So I was at Benson Rio Grande Valley State Park, where I met Edwin. Worked alongside Javier at Estero Llano Grande and the great staff at Resaca Palma State Park. Was only there very short for about 2 years. Promoted to my current position where I'm a state park police lieutenant. I was at the Game Warden Training Center for the last 5 years, teaching and training our future law enforcement officers for both divisions, for both game wardens and state park police. Extremely rewarding career for sure. From now, just a couple of weeks ago, I lateraled into a new position, for me at least. Now we'll be serving both regions 2 and 4 state parks, law enforcement, under great leadership, continuing under great leadership, serving our officers throughout the last 11 years or so, a little bit going on 11 years for Texas Parks and Wildlife.
That's awesome, Luis. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. I think, so I'm Edwin Quintero. I'm the park superintendent at Goose Island State Park, and I'm also a Valley native. Been around the state for a little bit. I've held several positions in the state, but originally started down in the valley. And so that place, I'm going to hold that very dear to my heart, along with some other places in the state. I think Juliette, I think you're from North Texas, and that's a really good spot in the state as well that I hold pretty dear to my heart as well. But the way I started, I was still in college, doing interning at different areas and volunteering. My background is in biology. And I kept hearing this reoccurring theme from everybody that was kind of talking about, they did internships and they volunteered at different nature centers or, outdoor places that are, we're taking care of the resources. We're building up stewards, and so that's one of the things that I really liked. That was my journey. I finally fell into a spot at Benson, Rio Grande Valley, or that's where I started my career. And since then, I kind of moved around the state a little bit, and I've held different positions since then. I love it. It's been great, and I really like what I do. When you like something, it doesn't feel like a job, and so it's great. It's been a really good journey for me. And so I know we've kind of talked about a little bit of this on how you guys, your current roles right now, but I'm just curious to hear, how did you, for those of you guys that were in college or just figuring things out early on in your life, how did you figure out, hey, I want to be a park ranger, or I want to, lead bird walks because it's something that I just, you really liked. And so how did you land in that career path? And if you had to go back and kind of maybe tell your students or give some advice to students that they're trying to decide their own path, what type of advice would you give to them, Juliette, if you had to do something like that?
Yeah. So, like I said, like one of the first times I experienced a park was at Bastrop State Park of my sophomore year of university. It was actually before, in my freshman year of university, I was actually looking to go into like the dental route. So completely opposite of what I'm doing now. I wanted to be a dentist. So for that degree plan at the university I was at, I was required to take a field biology course. And that course that year was a 3-day camping trip at Big Bend National Park. So there it was just 2 professors and 4 students. And we had to start a field journal. And that kind of changed my entire outlook on my entire life. So I ended up transferring universities. And whenever I spoke to the advisor, I was like, hey, what can I do that involves being outdoors? And they're like, recreation administration. And I didn't go that route because my sister was already doing that degree. And you know how sibling kind of things can be. So I was like, you know what? There's wildlife biology. I want to do that. So I did my entire wildlife biology degree. I joined the Wildlife Society. And once I realized there was internships, I really put myself out there. And I consider myself more of an introverted person, but you have to put yourself out there. That's the only way that you'll know.
Yeah, just like Juliette, growing up, I always just wanted to do something that was going to be kind of law enforcement related, but I really liked the outdoors a lot. And I know, Luis, I know you have a really cool journey that you kind of spoke to about a while ago. But as an archaeologist, how did you decide to land on that career path? I know there's a lot of kids out there that, that's the number one thing that they think about. I want to be an archaeologist, but I'm just curious to hear, how did you decide to land on that? And then what kind of advice would you give to students trying to decide their...
From a very young age, I was very interested in Native American history and prehistory. So the interest was there. It's just that I didn't really understand until I got into college that I could actually make a career out of this. I went into college thinking I was going to be a Spanish teacher and a baseball coach. That was my thing. I was going to do that. But then I discovered the anthropology department and started taking a few classes here and there, and started talking to my professor and realized that there was this private sector track that I could do where people actually hire archaeologists to do archaeology. So that's that's how I landed on the career path to become an archaeologist. And advice for the young people out there who are looking to find their way. I know it sounds very cliche, but do identify and find your interests, and do what you like, do what excites you, makes you happy, and fulfills you. I think you'll be happier in your career, in your life overall. And no matter how crazy it sounds, just pursue it. Nothing sounds as crazy as being an archaeologist, I think. And I'll give my mom and dad a lot of credit. They never told me not to. They always supported me. And but yeah, just put in the necessary work to succeed. It's like everything, it takes work, but just do what you need to do and get it done. And I'd like to echo what Juliette said. I'm somewhat of an introvert myself, and one thing I wish I would have done when I was younger in school is do get out there, do network, do join the societies, do go out and meet people that are doing the same things you're doing. I think it's very important. It's going to serve you very well as you move to the future.
That's awesome. And yeah, absolutely. I think everything y'all just said, it's great advice for everybody that's watching back home. If they're, students in college, this is, I think everybody went through this where, they had to put themselves out there. They had to join organizations, kind of know a little bit about what was available out there to them. Isidro, I'm just curious to know, I know your path is a little bit different. You're currently volunteering at Estero Llano Grande, but I'm just curious. I know you briefly mentioned how you kind of fell into that, but would you mind sharing, your perspective as a volunteer, helping out state parks?
Yeah. So the way I got into volunteering, and honestly, most of the jobs that I've had, because currently I do environmental and wildlife surveys for a company down here. I'm also a bird guide, but the way I got into this was through that nonprofit org. I joined it when I was in high school, so around 2006, 2005, around there. So it's been about 20 years that I've been with them, and I'm still with them, helping them out whenever they do events and programs. But I joined in high school, and I got to go on trips to Big Bend, some of the different state parks here in Texas, even some of the national parks, Grand Canyon, while I was still in high school. So being able to do that, I had a lot of fun, and just wanted to keep doing that. So when I went to college, I joined the college version of this program. So this was the one where we not only took those trips, but we're the ones teaching students, different outdoor education stuff. And then it just grew. I never knew I would like doing education and that sort of stuff. But doing these programs with the kids, going to the Grand Canyon, Smoky Mountains, Big Bend National Park, Big Bend Ranch State Park, some of the different areas. I just had a lot of fun. So I enjoyed teaching, educating all these students. And then towards the end of my college career, I applied for internships for the National Park Service. So I was able to get them based on all this experience I had just going out, basically having fun. And I did the education and interpretation departments for Oregon Caves National Monument. So I was there for a full season. Afterwards, I came back. I did 2 different summers at Laguna Tascosa, working in the visitor center, then working with the YCC. And then I did 2 years up in Alaska, working for one of the national parks in Anchorage, doing education programs. So leading after school programs at a bunch of different schools around there. Then I came back, and having all that experience helped me get some of my current jobs that I've had and the current one that I have. But it also gave me the love for just being outside, educating people about the different stuff here in the Valley, especially. And then, like I had mentioned earlier, in 2008, while I was searching for a job, I just went out birding, which is how I got to know a lot of the other people, and people just started remembering my face because I was just there consistently. And then it grew to me helping them on the guided bird walks to leading when I'm needed. I'm also, in addition to my day job, I'm also a bird guide for some of the festivals and for private clients here in the Valley. But what I would say to students is, like others have mentioned, don't be afraid to leave the Valley. Go out, do an internship out of state, experience different things, different cultures. And especially with the Hispanic community, don't be afraid to deviate from what your family's done. So, in a lot of cases, the family goes one path, don't be afraid to go a completely different one, because that's basically what I did. I'm the only one in my family that was able to go to college and then has picked a naturalist career path right now. But yeah.
That's awesome, Isidro. I think it totally resonates on some of the things that I've kind of lived through. Yes, don't be afraid to get outside your comfort zone. Don't be afraid to go to a different part of the state or even outside of the state, just so that you can experience different things. That's only going to prepare you a little bit better for down the road in your career. And so, no, I think you hit it right on spot. So, me myself thinking back, and we keep hearing this reoccurring theme as we were having these pretty cool conversations with each other. But thinking back, 20 years ago, I was trying to figure out what I was going to do in college. I had friends of mine that were just criminal justice degree majors, and I was like, "Yep, I'm probably going to do the same thing." But I really enjoyed the outdoors. I really, at one time, I liked taking people out on kayak trips and tours and mountain biking programs, and I just really, that was one of the things that I really enjoyed. And so it dawned on me that I really like doing those type of things. And so when I finally fell into a position where I was a park ranger and I could do that for fun, and it was work, it was really not work, right? And so Lori, if you could go back 20 years ago, or to your younger self, what piece of advice would you give yourself so that you would have done something differently in your life, and it would prepare you for your career down the road?
Well, first of all, I got a lot of my first start off with the parks at Waco Tanks Parks in my hometown, El Paso. I grew up there. I just loved it. I always say I want to die there. And then criminal justice was my next field, but being my age, they said, well, you've reached that point. So I decided, well, I took a turn and decided to go geology based because of my son, who loves the earth and everything. And so I always say, enjoy the ride better without looking at how all others are paving their way. Your strengths and weaknesses are your own. Use them to your benefit and desires. Find your voice and don't be afraid to use it. Don't accept no as an answer. Keep going and trying, is what I always say.
Nice. That's awesome. That's really good advice for folks. If I were to tell myself, 20 years ago, that's solid. I love that. Raul, if you had to go back and give yourself advice, what would you give yourself? What would you do differently that would help you, later in your career?
But yeah, about some 20 years ago, I was just getting out of the Navy. So I struggled to find work during that time. Most of my job didn't relate to the civilian world, so I did struggle with work and things like that. But personally, I would say to trust the process and not to rush into things. I really wouldn't give myself advice on how to do things differently, because I found that through my personal experiences, that's what made me who I am today and where I am today. Building that work ethic and things like that through the struggles and everything that I faced during that time. But when I did finally make my way to my nature-based career, I think I was about 28. My dad was working at the nature center, and he told me to come volunteer over there. And I did that for about 8 months or so. And the director at the time, Martin Hagney, he was one of my great mentors at the time, and you know, that's where I first started everything for me, because he asked me if I wanted a job there, and I was like, yeah, because that's part the passion that I'd had within me since I was a kid. So really, it's just following your passion, and really setting the tone for where I wanted to be, and setting goals with attainable benchmarks for myself. And that's really what I would, tell myself is, just set your goals. Don't change anything. Just go through the motions and trust the process.
Yep. That's pretty good advice for those folks that are listening in. I know Luis and I, we go way back, and I'm just curious to hear, what kind of advice he would give himself, to his younger self, well before he was even a state park police officer or an assistant superintendent. So Luis, what kind of advice would you give yourself that would help you definitely do something differently that would put you, in a right spot in your career down the road?
Definitely. So about my 20-year-old self, just like Juliette, I was chasing a different degree path. I was actually a chemistry major, following the pharmacy or pre-pharmacy program. Decided that a bachelor's was not enough, so I completed my master's degree, thinking that that's what I really needed to do. And then honestly, everything goes the way it's supposed to, right? So our paths are predetermined based on our best wishes, so to speak, and for what we really enjoy doing. So it's more, I think it's a passion of what we do and how we do it. And so I would definitely tell myself, my younger self, if I could, is take advantage of a lot of these programs that we have, the internships that we have, both whether they're paid internships or volunteer internships, because it would have exposed me firsthand to the careers that we in Texas Parks and Wildlife have. I think that gives you firsthand knowledge of who we are and what we do, and our mission and our vision, right? Never always focusing on that, never focusing on just the personal aspect, and all that just falls into place. I think my 20-year-old self, if I would have had the opportunity to just take advantage of the internship, then it wouldn't have been 11 years with Texas Parks and Wildlife. It might have been, 15, 20 years. It would have been a little bit more. And obviously, every one of us takes our path, but I'm extremely excited to be here today and continue moving us forward for sure.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Luis. Yep. We keep hearing that reoccurring theme. It's just volunteering, looking out for interns, internships, and yeah, that's exactly it. I think if I were to go back, that's something that I would have told myself. Because growing up, possibility of working in a position that I am right now never crossed my mind. I just knew I wanted to do something outdoors, and I'm glad that I'm able to do this now. So Luis, and I know we have two Luises. So Luis Alvarado, thinking about what you currently do, and I think it's so cool, being an archaeologist. That was one of my things, growing up. I was like, man, if I can't be this, I want to be an archaeologist. And so I love that you're in the panel right now, because that's so awesome. Thinking back to our state parks mission statement, how do you feel that we as a division can do a little bit better to further reach out to our Hispanic community, and have a bigger impact in our Hispanic community? If we wanted to do programs and things like that, what do you think we can probably do or switch it up to have a better reach?
Sure. I think maybe focusing on the providing the recreational and educational opportunities for Hispanic and Latino communities would be good. At least that's where I would try to focus. We do a lot of these things already, but perhaps maybe expand and focus our outreach efforts, obviously within our Hispanic and Latino community. Classroom outreach, I think, would be fantastic. Again, we do a little bit of that now, but had I had that as a kid and seeing a Latino Hispanic person come into the room and say, I'm an archaeologist, I'm I'm a game warden or I'm a park police officer or whatever it may be, or park superintendent. I think that would have been, very beneficial to me and would have helped me, get on my track and at least figure out what I wanted to do at a much earlier age. And also, Texas Outdoor Family, I think is such a wonderful program. Juliette said that she was part of that, and I think just doing that sort of thing out in the urban areas, I think is really key, essential. Some of you that have been around a long time maybe remember Expo. It's a big affair that we all had at here at headquarters, and maybe if we could do like mini expos, out in the smaller communities, I think would maybe allow us the opportunity to reach, again, our Hispanic Latino community and, other minority communities that aren't, accustomed to coming to our state parks. But all in all, I think it's just a matter of finding a way to reach out to the youngsters and to the community and make them feel comfortable within our own state parks and just give them the opportunity to recreate and learn. That's kind of what I think we should do, at least in the future.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Luis. Raul, would you care to give us your perspective? I know if I'm familiar, I think you are also a Valley native, right?
Yes. Yeah, I'm from Resaca, Texas. I'm from the Valley. But in my opinion, I've been with the agency for 5 years, but even in doing this with U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, being a community liaison, I think in my opinion, I believe that we could do it better in terms of fostering understanding of the diversity of Texas lands and the heritage. Leaning off my own experience as an interpreter, I've seen a huge disconnect in the local Hispanic community with the outdoors. They seem to see the outdoors as just monte, or usually considered as a thorny wasteland with not much to offer them. And to me, that's a shame, because they don't see the value or the benefit to their own, quality of life, and how it relates to them. Usually, that comes based off of lore and tales on why they should avoid some of these lands, And I use this to my own benefit and created a program called Planting Your Roots to Grow Your Future. It's a native plant-based program about native plant knowledge of our abuelos and losing some of that knowledge. This was more geared to anyone, but more so our local Hispanics to regain the knowledge of native plants and their uses and how you can incorporate that into your own landscaping in your own yard, even. But as an agency, bringing the state park experience to the community involves immersing ourselves in the community and taking any opportunities to showcase who we are and what we do during any community event. So being an urban park ranger at one time, I learned a lot from that experience and really getting out there and exposing people to the uniform, and not that we're not just game wardens or anything like that, that we do a whole lot more. And just engaging people in that way. And just like Luis Alvarado said, getting out there and doing a lot more outreaches. TOF is a really big example of that, and getting out there and exposing people to those opportunities. I think we could do a whole lot more of that for sure.
That's awesome. Thanks, Raul, for sharing that with us.
Sure.
Luis, if you could, think of, curious to hear your perspective on this. I know as a law enforcement officer, you get to do a little bit of more outreach programs, possibly with some of the communities. So, let us know what your perspective is.
For sure. So I think that what we currently do is working. I think we build on the blocks that we currently have. So obviously exposing or introducing our parks, our beautiful places through our interpreters and through our CSRs and through our resources, by bringing in the community to our parks, by continue doing that education, I think creates a lot of value, being able to tell everybody what we do and how we do it. But also, and just like Luis said earlier, providing them the resources and understand the resource. What are the park rules and regulations, and why you are part of the bigger picture, right? A lot of people don't understand that, don't know that. And so one of the things that we do in outreach is mainly exposing our parks in a positive light, like we normally do, because that's what we are. We are a family-friendly place, location that is able to provide different outreaches. Some of the events, for example, the Science Spooky Fest or the Trunk or Treaters or events like that we put out in the events, but not only us going to the community, but also welcoming the community to our locations. I think that is really big because I think that it needs to, just like Raul said, it starts when the kids are very young. If they enjoy what they do, then they'll keep coming back, right? And if we are able to provide those opportunities of fishing, we're able to provide those opportunities of hiking, and we're able to provide those opportunities to be able to do the little activities and tailor these activities to different age groups. So have something for the elementary kids, have something for the middle school kids, have something for the high school, early, younger adults and the older adults, right? And the interest groups, not only just everyone in general, right? And be able to expose them to what we do. I mean, we're such a large agency that we have so many beautiful places, and Texas is so diverse. So
that's awesome, Luis. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I think there's something that Raul said that really resonated with me, and growing up, as a first generation Mexican American, it was kind of taboo for us to go out to a state park and go camp, because my parents, all they did was work outside. That's what they did. And so it was weird for them to say, well, we're going to go spend our free time outdoors, when we just spend a whole 40 or 80 hours worth of working outdoors. And so I think there's that barrier there. And I think we're doing a lot better kind of breaking some of those barriers and just kind of teaching people like what we do, and what what Luis you just said. There's some things out here that are great for preserving. So anyways, if and the next question here, I kind of really want to ask Juliette. I'm the oldest of 2 or 3 sisters that I have in my family, and so the Hispanic experience was totally different when it came to in between myself and my sisters. And so I guess the question that I want to ask you, Juliette, is: does the gender affect the Hispanic experience? And if it does, and how do you view and celebrate our history and where we are currently today as a Hispanic woman?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that gender affects the Hispanic experience. So within my family, we were all female besides my dad. So he was in a family full of girls. And I feel like my experience has been, I don't know, I feel like I have been very Americanized. We never really celebrated too much of our Hispanic heritage due to just some things that happened to my parents growing up in Texas and public school systems. But I think that there's like a lot to be said. So like for just, I think representation is a really big thing. So like in history, and now recognize the like diverse experiences that Hispanic women have had can allow for a greater representation and empowerment for future generations and even people nowadays as myself, like highlighting their achievements or contributions that have been overlooked in more traditional narratives in the history of Hispanic heritage. Also, I think one thing that is really great is also highlighting inequalities. So this brings attention to a lot of just gender-based inequalities and disparities that have been within our community. So awareness is really big for advocating for change. So I feel like within my experience, just representation is a really big thing. As someone said earlier, I didn't really see women park rangers growing up. I never really went to parks. The parks I went to were city parks and were at the river. And I would always see just men driving UTVs around. And that was my experience with parks. So I think that representation is a really big thing for our community.
Awesome. That's very well said. Yeah, absolutely. I think, growing up, as I mentioned, I would see a little bit of differences. My parents would be like, nope, nope, my sisters are doing this, and you can go and do this. But I'm glad that, yeah, absolutely. There's definitely, there's still ways to go for us to kind of see equal representation, and I think you hit it right on spot. Isidro, do you know, do you think that, just being Hispanic, does it come with a stereotypical label? And if it does, is it true, or do you try to change it, uh, or do you just simply live up to it?
Um, so yeah, it does. I mean, it comes with negative and positive connotations, so it just depends on the situation whether I want to try to change it or want to live up to it. I know one thing, especially working up north, there's not always a high Hispanic population, so the color of my skin already is a big thing of like I'm already different. Before it used to bother me, now I love it. I prefer it when I get my usual 10 going on. Um, but being exposed to that, helped me realize I'm like, okay, I appreciate my own culture. Like, no, I want to bring that forward. So I don't really let it bring me down, and I'll just try to be like, yeah, my skin color is different, but we're all the same. We love nature. We're out here to learn and have fun. And then there's a lot of other cases. I mean, there's a lot of positive too. The big being on family. How that's a big thing. Food as well. And in my experience, I've had that help me connect with other people. So especially when I'm talking to visitors, um, my connection with family, I'm able to connect with other people a little bit more easily. Or the food thing, I bring them in. Like a lot of visitors that come down here ask where's the best restaurants to go to. So, I'll give them my 2 cents of like, hey, these are some of the best ones to experience. Good Valley food, good South Texas food, that sort of thing. And then another thing that's kind of in the middle is people automatically thinking you can speak Spanish just because you're Hispanic. So that can go both ways. Thankfully, I know enough to pass a conversation. But in my experience working for the park system, it's been a big help. When I was in Oregon and Alaska, I was the only Hispanic worker there. I was the only one that could communicate with people from Spanish. So there's been a few times where I've been on my break or off, and I've had people come and ask me, it's like, hey, we have a visitor who only speaks Spanish. Can you come and help us? There was one time in Alaska, I was literally about to take a bite out of my sandwich, and my coworker came in like, hey, can you help us up front? I'm like, yeah, give me a sec. And then just created the leeway of communicating with these visitors that wanted to experience, the public lands, and then communicating with the other rangers of like, hey, this is what they're trying to do. Let's help them get set up. So it's just one of those. There's a lot of different stereotypes, some good, some bad. With the bad ones, I try to disprove them as best I can, and with the positive ones, try to live up and reinforce some of those.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Isidro, for sharing that. That's pretty powerful there. So if Luis, Alvarado, if you wanted to, if there's something, looking at Texas state parks, there's been a lot that has changed in the last 5 years, and now with our centennial celebration, engaging new diverse audiences. What do you predict like that's going to happen in the next 5 to 10 years? Hopefully we keep this forward momentum. But I'm curious to hear your perspective on that.
Yeah, as I mentioned, I've been around for 20 years, so I've seen quite a bit of change through the years, and I think the biggest thing that I've seen is that the division is growing and evolving, and I think necessarily so. Like any organization, you don't want anything to stagnate. You want to be moving and changing with the times and the people. So, as we all know, the state is growing, visitation is booming, and population is booming, and our user group, quite frankly, I think changed. And you superintendents can probably speak to this better than I can, but the user groups changed because of the pandemic, right? So I think with as I mentioned, we're growing and we're adding new properties to accommodate these new visitors and these new residents. And with the Centennial Conservation Fund, Proposition 14, I think that's very exciting that we're moving into the future with possibly, hopefully the voters, vote for this proposition and give us the funds that we need to, to increase our park lands and to provide them with the opportunities to recreate. And when I say evolving, I think we're becoming a more diverse division. I've seen it personally. When I first came on, very few Latinos. You wouldn't see many Latinos in the hallways, at headquarters or even in the parks. But now I go to my various parks and I see quite a few people like me out there, and it's very exciting. And I'm excited for the future, and I hope we continue on this trend. Because I think it benefits everybody. It affects us as an organization. Sorry, and I think it's good that we reflect our constituents or our user groups. I think it's ideal that we would be a cross section of society, if you will, just so we can better represent everybody.
Nice. Yep, that's absolutely. I think there's been really good strides, and I'm looking forward for the next 5 to 10 years to see what's going to happen. Raul, would you care to share any of your perspectives? I know you've had a little bit less time than Luis Alvarado with the agency, but I think we've seen some really good changes since you and I have come on board. So I'm just curious to hear your perspective.
Yeah, so I'm going on my 5th year with TPWD, and it's been a really great experience for me. But I've just in the short time that I've been with the agency, I've seen big shifts, and being more inclusive and whatnot. But there's a lot of opportunities for growth and professional development. But I also believe that in the next 10 to 15 years, and as an agency, it's just going to be a continual culture shift in reaching new audiences and continuing to grow off of that. Texas is becoming more and more urbanized, but with that mindset, we also need to continue navigating the urbanization and adapting our message to be inclusive to that audience, so that we can accomplish our mission statement. But I just think that we're just going to catapult, with the Centennial coming to a close. I think that it's just going to continue growing and reaching new audiences. And I can't really say a whole lot, but like I said, in the 5 years that I've been with the agency, it's really changed a lot, and I see that continuing.
Yep. Awesome. Yeah, we can definitely see that for sure. I keep seeing everybody's social media pages on their state parks social media pages, and all these great Centennial events that are happening across the state. That's definitely going to help bring in definitely new diverse audiences that never knew state parks were there for them to be able to recreate in. So I can't wait to see what's going to happen in the next 5 to 10 years. Lori, I know you've mentioned, coming from West Texas and learning and wearing different type of hats. I'm just curious to hear your perspective as, anybody out there listening to us. How do you define success? Just in your current roles and the different positions that you currently have held.
So for me, I define success as progress, the progress that I've done from when I started volunteering to being an intern and seasonal, and now to the position I currently am. It's also the journey, the journey that I've been on, being able to travel. I haven't traveled all of Texas yet, but it is on my bucket list. But what I have, I grew up in El Paso, Texas, the majority of my life. Coming down to Goliad, to a town of 1,000 people, was like, wow, like green and water, and granted my allergies, but then coming down to Dinosaur Valley State Park was another shock for me, just seeing that there is trees and there is life and there is, just living in the desert so long, I always said when I die, we're going to be like bags of cement, But other than that, I think success is also our mistakes that we make. the knowledge that we acquire, the accomplishments that we have all learned and gained throughout our years, the fun, including the bruised knees, the scars, the cuts, everything that we go through having to, do something, whether it's a small hike or kayaking or whatever, but at the end of the day, success really is a destination that never has an expiration date.
That's awesome, and that's very well said. I think when I have those conversations with some of my my staff and friends, and we never really stop learning, and so we just keep learning, and that's how we become better. So thanks for sharing your perspective. I guess Luis, as a park police officer. I'm just curious to know, how often do you have to speak Spanish at the parks? When you're staying, going and to any of the parks within Region 2 or Region 4. I'm just curious to see how often you have to use your native tongue or your valley sass and talk to some of those folks out in the parks.
Sure, Edwin. Being bilingual definitely has a lot of advantages. Definitely number one advantage for me being bilingual is being able to reach out to more people, being able to communicate our mission, our vision. And like you said, I'm like Lori. I try to travel as many parks as I can and go help out wherever I can. For example, 4th of July, I was at the Inks Lake State Park. The visitation there, I mean, they had quite a bit of visitors in there, and that's out of Region 3. But man, every other contact I had, it was somebody that wanted to speak Spanish, and being able to communicate with them and being able to explain why the rules and regulations and why we have them and the importance of it. It's more the educational outreach rather than writing a citation or taking somebody to jail, right? It's being able to talk to them and communicate to them the importance of who we are and what we do, continuing that mission, moving it forward. And just being bilingual is just the additional, cherry on top of the cake, right? It's that additional being able to communicate that message through a different language, because you'd be surprised. We're starting to get a lot of people in our parks that speak different languages. Unfortunately, I can only speak 2. I wish I could speak more, but I'm not there yet. So, but definitely a lot of benefits.
Yep, absolutely. I remember being up in the Texas Panhandle, and the very first time I was up there, I spoke to a Hispanic family, and here comes this park ranger, and I knew immediately that they were just looking at me, and they're like, "Oh man," I knew that they didn't speak a word of English, and the first word that came out of my mouth was "Hola, ¿cómo están?" And their eyes just went like big, and a big old smile came on, and so that was the best way to kind of break that barrier and just talk to them, and it was awesome. After that interaction, they always look for me, and they're asking like, "What's the best campsite? What's the best trail?" So awesome. Thank you for sharing that with us, Luis. So growing up, and we've all had these mentors throughout our lives, and that we tend to look up to, right? And so, or we have colleagues that we tend to look up, and they've had some sort of impact on our career paths or on our lives. And so, Lori, have you had any Hispanic mentor or colleague that you have that has paved the way, that you've looked up to in the past, and that has helped you in your current role, or even in some of the past current roles?
I have. I mean, I've been around long enough, so I do have 2 Armando Reese. I'm sorry, Rene Reese and Armando Rivera. That is where I got one of my first starts in the roots of my Mexican Latino culture. I started working for AT&T Espanol, translating, and so to me, being born in El Paso, I actually didn't know how to speak Spanish until I was about 8 years old, and I was kind of forced to learn Spanish. So they'd sit me in front of the TV, watching the Mexican novelas. So I always say I learned dramatic Spanish. But just being able to help two people, one, the operator who doesn't speak Spanish, and two, the customer who is trying hard to, get their information across, being the third person there, connecting those two to again become one to the, the fourth party was an awesome feeling. I met a lot of people from a lot of different cultures in the Mexican world, Puerto Rican and Brazilian and Colombian, and thinking, wow, we understand each other, but yet there's a lot of difference sometimes, in how the words are said. And sometimes, even speaking to people from deep Mexico, I'm like, whoa, wait, because it's like, I can't understand it. But, other than that, I do have another one, Susana Cruz. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with her, the Chicana nature. Just seeing her being a female, being out there by herself, doing all these things, and then getting a following on Facebook and all these social medias, and just meeting her for the first time at Dinosaur Valley was really an honor. And just seeing how awesome she has grown has shown me that I still need to do more. I'm in my 50s, and so it's like, as I tell my daughter, I'm not dead yet, because she gets mad at me. You have to act your age, and you have to do this, and it's like, no, I'm not dead yet. I'm still living, so I'm gonna keep going. I do have another Alma Fudd from Tech 2.0, where I did a lot of volunteer work for several years, doing community service. The water resources, the education, the conservation. I was even able to bring my daughter in. My daughter was one of those introverts that didn't want, always, I don't like people. And I kind of forced her, like, hey, just try it. If you don't like it, then you don't ever have to do it again, And she tried it, and now she still does volunteering there. And just to see her, it just makes me so happy, knowing that, I did that. I pushed her to kind of open up like a flower. And I also have Eddie Zuniga. He was one of my colleagues at UTEP. Just meeting him and not knowing him, and just talking to him out of the blue, and talking about our personal, meeting up every now and then between classes about personal life or college and the stresses and all of that. I truly thank him, because, geology is hard. I mean, I don't know, the math there is, I hate math. But pulling my hair out. Another one, Rob Robroff. He's the El Paso Community College geology professor, and he introduced me to the GeoVentures, which is what I truly miss now. Being able to be out in nature, giving tours, and talking to people, and getting them to love the outdoors. I don't want to name too many. There's a lot of people, but just to me, that has made me who I am, and I'm thankful for that.
That's awesome. And being at Dinosaur Valley, I'm sure you can definitely there's so many things that you can talk about there, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, everybody has had those mentors or those colleagues that has helped them in their path, along their path towards reaching that goal of theirs. So that's really good to hear. So it looks like we're getting pretty close to the end of our session. Well, amigos, amigas, I really appreciate y'all being able to join us today. It looks like we'll be wrapping up our Hispanic Heritage Month panel. I really enjoyed hearing everybody's journeys, having some really good conversations with each other, and talking about conservation and careers in state parks and in the outdoors, right? And how can we bring how can we connect our Hispanic community into the outdoors? And it was really great hearing that from you guys. So that pretty much wraps up our Hispanic Heritage Month panel discussion today. I really appreciate y'all joining us today, this morning. I know Luisa might have said something when my internet was going in and out, but if you guys have any questions, anybody watching from home or logging in remotely, if anybody has a question to any of the members of the panel, please feel free to reach out to me. I believe Louise in the background will probably share my contact info, and I can definitely put those folks in contact with anybody that's on our panel today. So with that being said, I want to thank the panel for joining us today and everybody else that joined online. Thank you so much, and hasta luego. We'll see each other down the road. So thank you so much, guys. Y'all have a good day.
Thank y'all.
Mucho amor.
Bye. Thank y'all.
Adios.
Y'all be
Yes.
safe.
Bye.
Thank you. Y'all have a good day.